Welcome everyone and welcome to another episode of the Business Hour here on Unity FM. I'm your host Umar Rashid, and firstly I'd like to give a personal thank you to the few people who have reached out to me, who've taken their time to connect with me and provide their feedback on how the show's been going, and the feedback's been positive in regards to the structure, the guests, and more importantly the content that's been shared and that's been of value. And alhamdulillah, that was the intention of when we were to bring the Business Hour here on Unity FM. It was a platform for business owners and business people to provide information, their specialist knowledge, to inspire and motivate so that other people in business can reflect, learn, be educated, and hopefully make their business life that little bit simpler and easier as well. Now, if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to the previous episodes, you can now do so on my YouTube channel, which is at Umar Rashid HR. Please also connect with me on other social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Again, the handle for all of those is at Umar Rashid HR. And, message me, connect with me, provide me with feedback. If you want to know more about the show, please ask. And even if you wish to come onto the show, then, please connect, ask, and inshallah we can make that happen. Now, moving to our guest today. She is a passionate and committed public speaking and communication skills expert, and she's acquired her experience working for some of the highest profile financial institutions and has intelligently transitioned her skill set to become an industry leading expert in her field. Over time, she has developed a profound understanding of the different aspects needed to deliver powerful, persuasive presentations. My guest today has worked with people and teams at all levels, from CEOs to many leading corporations, politicians, creatives, bankers, scientists, and she's someone who is passionate about her work and has witnessed the power of great presentations and how they can change opinion, minds, history. She's also an author, having published her book earlier this year, and she's the one, the only Maz Ifzal. Maz, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, Omar. How are you?
I'm very, very well. How are you? It's a shame that you can't be here in the studio today, but that's because you've recently moved outside, away from Birmingham. Is that correct? And you are now in the land of... Where are you now?
I'm on the borders of Cheshire. I'm in a small village.
A small village. So how are you finding it from a very busy, diverse, hustle city of Birmingham to the little villages in Cheshire?
Nice. I miss Birmingham. I miss Birmingham people. I miss Birmingham food. I miss the atmosphere. Yeah, that's where I was raised and I grew up. So it's very different. But alhamdulillah, I'm not complaining.
I was going to say, definitely miss the food. Wherever I go, I generally do miss the food of Birmingham as well.
Yeah.
Good. So, look, Maz, I introduced you as a public speaking and communication skills expert. Now, there's not many people that attribute their profession to becoming, a public speaking and communication skills expert, and I find it quite fascinating. There's not that many people. When you look at the whole world, obviously, in one shape or form, we communicate, and do you know what I mean? I was just wondering how, what's your journey? What's your story? How did you get into public speaking?
As you said, communication, it's the backbone of our society. It allows us to form connections. It allows us to influence decisions. And of course, it motivates change. And as you said, I have worked with some of the highest profile financial institutions. And over time, I've developed a profound understanding, of the different aspects needed to deliver powerful, persuasive presentations. Without communication skills, the ability I learned going from university to working in the corporate world, the ability to progress in the working world and in life itself would actually be nearly impossible. After leaving the corporate world, I wanted to do something completely different, something more in alignment with the sort of thing that I had always been good at. and I started doing
So
some
sorry to interrupt you there, Matt. So at university, what did you study? What did you graduate in at university?
So I have a master's in economics from LSE,
Okay.
and I was a stockbroker for Goldman Sachs.
Okay. Okay. So even that as a stockbroker, that if I was going to be a little bit stereotypical, that's not very what you would class a female, and especially and even a Muslim female orientated profession. Is that a correct observation to make?
It is, yeah. I was the only female and the only Pakistani person on the stockbroking floor at the time. I mean, the world's very different right now. And I'm not talking many, many moons ago, but certainly a moon or two ago. Yeah, no, no, you're right. It's something that I always wanted to do. Coming from a Pakistani background, Pakistani culture, naturally your parents want you to be a
Yeah.
doctor, a lawyer.
So
Um,
even at that, so I'm just thinking. So at that time, Maz, did you feel any sort of additional pressure being the only girl, on top of that being the only Pakistani girl? Did you feel that pressure to stand out in a certain way, and did you inadvertently think, okay, my communication, the way I stand out, the way my demeanor has to be, does it have to be a little bit more different, or do I have to enhance it in any way to actually stand out or be taken seriously or to be even treated equally?
as I said earlier, communication is the backbone of our society. It's a soft skill that we never learn at school, college, university. So I heavily invested in myself when I became a stockbroker because I realized that this is a very vital skill to have. And what I do is actually a direct result of the challenges that I've experienced in my professional life. Being a stockbroker, as an expert, I help people identify what they're most passionate about and what they're actually most or more naturally gifted with. And as Sorry,
What
what were you going to
challenges
say?
did you find? You mentioned that you had some challenges as a stockbroker. What sort of challenges did you find?
I think you always have the fear in you, don't you? And I always talk about fear with my clients that um, am I going to come across well?
Hmm.
Are they going to take me seriously on the stockbrokering floor? How am I coming across? What are my communication skills like? Because we know that if we lack communication, we're not going to go very far. It would be nearly impossible progress in the working world. And as I said earlier, in life itself. Would you not agree?
Hmm. Yeah, no, no,
I
no,
mean, public
definitely.
speaking is one of the most important and not to mention the most dreaded forms of communication. It's known as glossophobia, or you could even go as far as saying speech anxiety. And it's the most common fear people have across the globe. I know because I've had it and I still have it. If I'm going to go to an audience, even when I'm doing my sessions, I always have this fear, random things going through my mind. Throughout primary school, it's easy to be the student who sits in the back of the classroom and actually avoids raising his or her hand
Mm.
to avoid such situations. But as you and me know, in the working world, public speaking is a vital skill to have, and not just to have, but to hone. It affects simple, everyday interactions, Omar, between co-workers, bosses, employees, marketing professionals, your clients. And actually, it has an enormous impact on the career path and the level of success in the industry. Everyone is unique. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. A couple of things that you said there, and I've got a couple of questions to ask you, Maz.
Hmm.
So people talk about, people ask the question, are entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur, are you born an entrepreneur or do you become an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
And I'd probably say the same thing about public speaking.
Hmm.
Are people born public speakers or do they become one? And depending on your answer, where does the fear, why are people fearful of public speaking? Where does that then fit into it from your opinion?
Okay. So to answer the first question, are people born public speakers or become one? Well, interesting you say that because many people, and even I've had this before I've gone into this industry. I've thought that great public speakers, they must be born. It comes naturally.
Mm.
And we always think that because the person that we're listening to or watching, they actually make it look so easy, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's not easy. From personal experience, they've spent a great deal of time, energy, and effort, focusing on learning and developing the skill. And you'll be pleased to know that it is a skill that we can all develop. So to answer your question, great public speakers aren't just born that way, they work at it. While natural talent and confidence can play a big part, actually, Omar, so much more goes into being a great public speaker. Then coming to why are people fearful of it? Well, I think public speaking is scary because people matter. Even people who don't matter do matter. And what I mean by that is when you speak to a group of people, it's natural, Omar. We all want to belong. You've probably heard that public speaking is feared more than death itself.
Really?
People would rather die than speak. And the vast majority of people rank the fear of public speaking as number one.
So when you say people are fearful of public speaking, now is that someone's perception? Because public speaking could be as simple, well, not simple, but public speaking could be as in the workplace, you're giving a presentation to 5-10 people, to even, I suppose then the other spectrum is you're speaking, you're doing a TED talk or whatever, and it's like hundreds and hundreds or possibly even thousands of people. In that sense, is it just any type of public speaking, or is it that the big audiences?
It's any type of public speaking. I mean, what are you and me doing? We're speaking. This is public speaking. And when we use the word fear, the root of a fear of public speaking is actually buried deep in our past. Let me give you an example. The fear can come from an experience where, once we were embarrassed or ridiculed or even overwhelmed with attention that was supposed to be positive. It might have been a performance situation, but it could just as easily have been an event that seemed unrelated, such as how we were praised or corrected actually at home or school. For others, the roots of their fear of speaking are in an adult performance that didn't go well. You could be at work doing a presentation and your boss is just giving you the look, oh my God. And when you perform again, the worrisome memories come back to haunt you. They generate thoughts like, I'm going to blow it. I don't belong here. What if they don't like me? Either way, the survival part of our brain, the situation, it looks dangerous. Your body gets ready to fight, flee, or freeze, which actually means, Omar, physical tension. And that's where handshake, your blood pressure increase for some. Some get this rapid heartbeat, sweating, and actually some even forget what they're about to say. Once in motion, the cycle of fear builds on itself. And actually, most people go to great lengths to avoid rejection. For many people, the fear of speaking, actually, I have seen causes them to turn down jobs, decline promotions, avoid interviews. But actually, avoidance, it doesn't help. And it narrows your choices and it makes the anxiety worse. And to master that skill, Omar, you need two things. First, you need to be present. You need to keep your heart open when you're in front of an audience. And second, you need to rewire your brain. And this brings a great quote from Albert Einstein, who said, you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. You need a new mind.
Maz, that's those 2 points, very, very interesting. But I want to take it a little bit step back, because that's once someone's potentially on the stage. Now, imagine this scenario where you're an employee and your manager has told you, next week you're going to have to do a presentation, you're going to go and do a presentation, the board of directors will be there, the chief executive will be there, or even someone who's then thinking, okay, next week I'm going to go to a networking event. I know that in that networking event, I'm going to have to get up to kind of do a pitch for 60 seconds or whatever. What would you say to that person around how best could they get themselves equipped to kind of, especially if they've got that fear and they've never done it before, what steps could they take to kind of not obviously be 100% perfect, but at least comfortable and communicate at least effectively as well?
I think when we know what we're talking about, we're confident. So I'd say that, go back to your material, know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Fear it's quite natural. What is fear? It's false evidence that appears real. And we're all going to have that. We're all going to get butterflies in our stomach. And I think sometimes that's a good thing. So the top advice would be is know your content and how you're going to deliver it. When you know what you're going to say, it's very easy, whether you're in front of one person, 10 people, 50, 100, 1,000, because you're so confident in your material, you know what you're talking about. And I'd say go and practice it, and then go home, have a mirror in front of you and talk to that mirror like it's your audience and see how you come across. So your verbal cues are also really important, because body language equates to 55%. Words are only 7%.
So very interesting you said about body language. Now, sometimes we see speakers or people talking, and obviously the use of hand gestures. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes I've seen these jokes with memes where people are just flapping their arms all over the place just to try and maybe make an emphasized point or whatever. But how do you use your body language and your, like you said, maybe your arms or your tone or whatever to kind of really emphasize certain points? What basics would you be saying to people to be, implementing?
I think body language is an essential part of public speaking success. Again, like I said, your non-verbal cues
Yeah.
will impact on the way that your message is received, how engaged your audience is, and what they think of you as an individual. It's like when we're making notes, and I know I do this. When I'm making notes, I do it in different colors and I highlight. Now, if I was to, and you said to me, Maz, tell me the notes that you've done. You don't know what I've highlighted. So hand gestures, they emphasize what you say. They give you that emphasis. They're your non-verbal cues, your movement, your facial expression, and the gestures. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah,
You're
yeah.
decoding what the person is saying. I mean, I know that the listeners, they can't see us, but if we have our hands on our side and I say, hi, my name is Maz Ifzal, that's hands on the side. But then I can say that with raising my hands, just halfway, and saying, hi, this is Maz Ifzal. It will be a lot different.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah, yeah,
sense?
no, definitely, definitely. And sometimes, how do you move away from, sometimes you're moving or you're twitching, and sometimes people can see that's a bit nervous energy. How can you kind of differentiate that actually this isn't nervous energy, this is just me trying to emphasize certain points?
I think that body language is your body's way of communicating without the use of the spoken word. It's a combination of facial expressions, gestures, and movements that actually convey what's going on in your mind. So naturally, if you have fear, you're panicked, you'll be pacing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's being aware of that and trying to control it. But the more you speak, the better you become at it. And that's why I say look at yourself in the mirror, check out how you're sitting or standing. What's the expression on your face? Are you frowning? Are you smiling? Are you standing up, or are you slouching in your seat, Omar? I don't know, I can't see you. If somebody was to take a photo of you right now, what do you think people are going to say about you based on your current body language?
Okay,
you
so
know
I'm slouched and I've got my kind of, I'm just relaxing back, and people will be thinking this is a real chilled out dude, chilled out guy, relaxed, you know. But it's true because I think I mean, I try and look back at when I've done presentations, and I've tried to use hand gestures, sort of thing. But
mm,
sometimes I've always had like a pen in my hand, and I've always like twisted the pen around, or I'm kind of flicking the pen
yeah.
around, and I suppose looking back inadvertently, that's maybe some nervous energy or nervous twitching sort of thing, and that's just, I suppose, we as humans are.
I think the truth is, Omar, that our body language is notorious for betraying our inner emotions. We may not say something out aloud, we may even deny something, but our body language will let the world know what we really think about something or someone. When you say to somebody, it's nice to meet you, but from their body language and hand gestures, you can actually, okay, is it really nice to meet you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Get
had that
away
where I
from
met.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, thought,
One thing, and I think this is something that I was always conscious of, and I still am conscious of, is when I'm communicating, especially whether it's in front of people, whether it's on the radio here, you can't get away from the ers and the ums, and you know what I mean. And this is where when you look at other people who communicate effectively, you listen to them and they're like, it's seamless. But I'm guessing that must be some sort of an art to kind of get away from doing the erms and the erms. Is it an art? Is there a way to kind of cut out the erms and the long pauses? I mean, what would you suggest in that instance?
I call those, you know, I do it myself at times as well. So, like, right, well. I think when we find ourselves rattled while speaking, or when we're nervous, or we're distracted, or we're at a loss for what comes next, it's easy to lean on these filler words. That's what they're called. They give us a moment to collect our thoughts before we press on. And in some cases, they may be useful indicators that the person that's listening to you needs to pay special attention to what's going to come next, but don't overuse them because they become crutches. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They diminish our credibility and they distract from the message. So even though I also use them at times, like I said, they do become crutches. In that instance, pause. When you're writing or when you read a book, you see that there's full stops. There's a reason why. Just pause and gather your thoughts. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. In modern day, Maz, another type of communication that we have, and especially a lot of people in business now, is doing videos or Facebook lives that we have. Now that I would also class that as a form of public speaking, but it's a different type of public speaking, isn't it? If I do a video and it's pre-recorded, but I'm going to share it out, I know in my mind I'm looking to hopefully project this out to hundreds and thousands of people. Does the principle still remain the same when you're preparing for doing a video, or does anything change?
I think it depends on the individual. For some people, again, it's very scary going onto the virtual platform and putting their video on. And some people are actually very confident because they're hiding behind a screen. I mean, you can always see the top half of your body. You can't see the legs because you're sitting down or you're standing up.
So you do
But
you
again,
so do you actually find, is that a scientific thing, or is that just your personal thing, that even though we're talking to people online like we have been doing for the last 12 to 18 months, that even
yeah,
though it's online, it's on an online platform, there is a bit of a screen, do you think people are a little bit more confident than let's say meeting people face to face and doing a talk?
I think that's what my experience has been.
Okay.
My experience has been that, yeah, people have said I'm a lot more confident. It's just me in the room. I've switched on my camera. I can't see 100 people at the other end. I can just see myself. And that gives them the confidence to speak, to collect their thoughts, to calm their nerves, and actually to build suspense when they're speaking. They come across so different on the virtual platform. And you think, wow, okay.
Okay, that's interesting, because I suppose the way to look at it is you're not looking at people's reactions, are you? Because sometimes when you're talking and you see someone either put the head down or they slouch,
Yeah.
straight away you're then thinking, oh my God, someone's zoning off. I mean, what could someone do in that instance? Is it that just because that's lack of preparation, or could they change something in their demeanor and their delivery to kind of, let's say, get the audience re-engaged?
I think when you're on the virtual platform, it's really important to engage the audience. As you've said on the other side, when we've done networking, which I've done so much of in the virtual world, people are on LinkedIn, they're on other social media platforms, they're on their phones, and it's so important to engage them. How do you engage them? By asking them questions, by checking in on them
Mm.
after every couple of minutes. When you are doing a presentation, pick out somebody random from there and ask them, does this make sense to you? Or what do you think about what I just said? So they're on their toes.
Yeah. Okay. That's okay. That's very interesting. Maz, during your journey, what I mean, you spoke about earlier around, people develop themselves. What big, when it comes to public speaking, what did you feel was the biggest development that you did? Or,
What was the biggest development I did in my journey?
yeah, to become, this public, to become the public speaking expert, communication expert. I mean, what type of development that you felt actually that was really, really beneficial to you?
I worked on my mindset because that was really important. Like you've said earlier, when you do put in public speaking coaches out there, there's only a handful of them.
Yeah.
And, certain people want, I've coached women and they want women only. It's very difficult to find a woman public speaking coach. And I've also had to overcome fears where are people going to take me seriously? Where's that fear stemmed from? Working on that fear, working on my cognitive side.
Mm.
And it's taken me a long time. Um, Success isn't where I am today, Omar, but it's the journey, the blocks, the barriers that I overcame.
Okay.
That's my success. That's my win. I mean, I don't want to go into detail in the blocks and barriers, but yeah, I am where I am today because I had that help where I was able to overcome that.
Okay, fantastic. Maz, we're going to take a short break, but there's actually, I know you didn't want to go into detail, but there's a couple of things that you said that I actually do want to go into a bit of detail after the break. So yeah, brace yourself for that. So guys, you're listening to the Business Hour here on Unity FM. I'm your host, Rashid. I have Maz Ifzal, public speaking and communications expert, today on the show. We're just going to take a short break, and inshallah, we'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back to the Business Hour. I'm your host, Umar Rashid, and today we have Maz Ifzal, who is a public speaking and communication skills expert. In the first part of the show, Maz gave us tips around how best we can kind of practice and prepare ourselves for doing any form of public speaking, whether that is a small presentation at work, to doing a full-blown talk on a stage, even also transferring some of those skills and knowledges onto the virtual platform as well. Just before the break, Maz, you spoke about part of your development was your mindset, and part of that was that you yourself had a bit of a fear in regards to people taking you seriously. Now, couple of things that I want to kind of probe into and explore is one, part of your fears was that did any of those fears attribute around that, one, you're a woman, two, that you're a Muslim woman, and the sort of profession of public speaking coaches or experts, that profession generally comes from, again, a bit of being stereotypical, generally it's a
Yeah.
male dominated field. Did you have, from a mindset and a fear point of view, did any of those play on your mind, and was that something that you had to overcome?
Um, I think, again, I've learnt this over time that our voices are powerful and we should use them. And we've seen how powerful voices are in the pandemic. LinkedIn is a great platform that I use. And I was able to voice my thoughts, put it down on paper and share it with the world out there. I believe that, using our voice is important, Omar. Many women, including myself in the past, and that's why I said I had those blocks and barriers, we underestimate the potential for change and actually the impact we can have if we just speak up. I'm actually not ignorant to the barriers, that exist physically, and for women, and even more so for women of color, women being of,
Yeah.
Muslim, Pakistani background. Many times in my life, I've been told that my voice isn't important, that actually I'm shouting into a void and nobody's listening. And over time, or over the last few years, I've trained Muslim women, those that the mainstream media largely ignore. And these women have stood in solidarity with those who are unheard. They've spoken up with opinions that aren't visible anywhere else. Nobody was talking about the things they thought were important, in a way that they wish they were. And I personally have talked about being a Muslim woman time and time again, and the lack of diversity we have in society and culture. And it's been really difficult to change myself from the girl, actually, who wanted to fade into the school walls, to actually the woman who can confidently speak up, both online and offline. And again, I say I've had many wobbles, many blocks, Omar, many barriers while I was growing up. And somewhere in this struggle, Omar, I realized that I was waiting for permission to stand in spaces where people like me didn't exist or speak up. For a long time, I watched conversations happen without realizing that actually I don't need anybody to invite me to the table before I can speak, even if that was the impression that was, Omar, given to me. As a woman, we're all waiting for this permission giving person, or actually a moment to arrive in our lives. The importance of our opinion can be reaffirmed to us before we speak up. And if we all recognize that we don't need this permission, and when I say permission, you're probably thinking, well, what is she on about? I'm on about society. I'm on about our culture. Then maybe we'd stop thinking twice before we share our views. And I've made a conscious effort to support Muslim women and to know of their achievements. This is what has built my confidence and resilience, by knowing that Muslim women are already what society thinks we can't be. There's actually, I'm going to use the word power. There's power in denying those who believe they know you better than they actually do. And in educating myself this way, I've not just overcome the blocks and barriers, I've created a new narrative of who Muslim women are for myself. And I've actually rejected the restrictions that have dominated the accounts of Muslim females. I find the traditional narrative around Muslim women frustrating, because I rarely identify with what I see. We have Muslim women that are scholars, they're sportswomen, they're scientists. The list is so long, and it has taken a long time, Omar, for society to show any of this. Even now, unless the Muslim narrative is linked to capitalism or oppression of some sort, we don't see a varied narrative surrounding Muslim women. But by actively controlling what I read and take in from the online sphere, I've widened my own worldview. That's how I see it.
Okay. So, look, I get the society that maybe, and I think sometimes I'd find our own culture and communities maybe, we put probably restrictions on our own community ourselves, and women, and the sisters upon ourselves. So obviously what's happened in the past has happened, but how let's look forward. And if we're looking to change that, if there are parents listening, and let's say there are mothers who are listening, what do you think they can do so that their children, and especially if it's their daughters, how could they have a voice? What could we do now to ensure that our children can communicate and they're not, in any way, shape or form stifled in their speech and their communication? What would you advise or state in that instance?
Well, look, Omar, we begin communicating from the moment we're born. When we're born, what do we do?
Cry.
What do we do? Yeah, we cry. So we let our mothers know we've arrived with our first cry. That's a form of communication. And as a child develops, it's so important that we nurture their communication skills so they're capable of expressing themselves clearly and confidently. In our culture, so many times we put our children down, and, where they're not able to actually tell you how they feel. And it's so important when we consider the stages of a child's development. Who do they first communicate with? The parents, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Then with their siblings, right?
Yep.
Then with their friends, and then with other adults, such as the school teachers. And as a child, we learn how do we learn to communicate? By watching and listening to our parents. And then we mimic their words and actions. So I would say communicate with your children first. The more you communicate with your child, the earlier and quicker they will develop these skills. And another great way is, I know because my Maliha is 11 years old, and my Miraj is 16. More than their grades, I always emphasize on reading. Reading is a great activity to help improve your child's communication proficiency. Why? Because it develops their language acquisition, and it introduces them to a range of vocabulary. And also it helps them to communicate with, I'd say, ease and clarity. And as they get older, and I've seen this again because Maliha's 11, Miraj is 11, that reading provides an excellent opportunity for discussion. It creates an environment where a child can comfortably and confidently gets used to articulating and sharing their ideas. So it's really important that you instill reading in your children. And like any skill, Omar, communication skills can be developed and refined with practice. But by helping and developing good communication skills in our children from their youth, we're equipping them straight away with the skills they need to build a successful future.
Okay, so people listening and they've got a child who is very, very shy. You know, we've all seen children at some certain age. They'll be shy. Where someone comes, an elder comes, and we have to push the child forward. Go on, go, go and say hello. Go and shake their hand. Go and say, and this, or even if ordering something or going to a shop, go and saying, look, go and ask for help or whatever. There's a lot of shyness there. How does reading help build that confidence, or is there anything additional that you think, okay, what can that child do? What can we do to ensure that our children move away from this shyness and they have that confidence to speak?
Naturally, we're all shy. We all need that confidence. And this is what I was saying. As children get older, you learn from your parents. Is that right or no?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's instilling confidence in our children. Reading will give you the vocabulary and how to articulate, but then it's giving your children that confidence, giving them the choice. And only then they become confident to go out into the big world. Small things like when they've gone to the shop, and they want a chocolate. Well, ask the shopkeeper. I've always done it with my children. Why don't you ask? Or we've gone into a stationery shop. Why don't you go to the till? Why don't you pay? I've always put them forward. And I've always involved them whenever we've had gatherings at home. Again, when we're going out to eat, they're not allowed a mobile phone, iPad, any gadgets. I want them to communicate. What's the point of going out to eat if your children are on a mobile phone or gadget? And I make that effort to communicate with them. When Maliha comes from school, rather than saying, how was school? And kids are like, I ask, what was your favorite subject today? What didn't you like today? Again, we're communicating with them. And I think that's really important that we ask them those questions rather than saying, well, how was school? And you'll probably get, yeah, great, or yeah, boring. And so what was your favorite subject today? What didn't you like today? What did you enjoy today? And in that way, you're sharing, and then a child is comfortable and confident, and they communicate with ease and clarity. And that's so important that we instill that in them as they're getting older.
Yeah, no, that is valuable, Maz. That is valuable, and I'm just, whilst you're saying that, I'm kind of reflecting as well, and I'm probably just as guilty as well when kids come home and I'll be asking them, "How's your day? What did you do today?" Or and you get 1-2 word answers
Exactly.
or a grunt, and you just accept it and you move on and you leave it to it. And you're right, it's trying to build that confidence and having more meaningful conversations, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, Maz, just a bit about your history, or your current journey. Now, you obviously coach people. I know you've previously have done training sessions, 1-day workshops, etc. Have you found a certain community or certain people that are maybe hesitant to come to you to learn or to get better because, let's say, because you're a woman in the first instance, and then secondly because you're a Muslim?
I've never experienced it in my profession, no. In the line of work that I do, I've actually coached more men than women.
Okay.
But yeah, I've never found that that they've said you're a woman and we don't want training from you.
Okay, but you found that you find women happily are welcoming that, a woman, you being yourself, coaching them or learning from them.
Yeah. I think we're in different times now. People are more educated. When I say educated, not a degree, but their mind.
The mindset,
they're more open
yeah.
about things. The mindset. People think education is a degree. It's not actually. A degree is just a piece of paper. Education is educating your mind. And if you look at Muslims now, yeah, they've definitely invested in their mind. So they've opened up.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And listen, I've come to one of your workshops, and I had no issue, with yourself, and I can vouch for you. Mashallah, it was very, very good, very, very insightful, and hopefully you can provide me with some feedback around my communication skills as on this radio show later on today as well. Maz, I want to move on just before we finish. You've recently become an author as well. And I was just wondering what made you decide to become an author, to write a book, and that in itself is a different form of communication, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I always had a book inside of me. I love writing. I religiously journal every morning. Um, but when it came to
So
my
when
profession,
you was younger, was you one of those that had a diary or a journal?
I did. Yes, I had a dear diary. I
Yeah.
did.
Okay.
I had a dear diary. And I'd come home and write dear diary and what had happened in the day. So yeah, I have this passion for writing. So yeah, so I had this book inside of me, and I wanted to know when was it going to come out? What was I going to write about? I wanted to give people value, but I had no time. I had family, children, commitments. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the resources to turning this idea and publishing it until the pandemic happened and there was a pause
hmm
and the world stopped. And I thought, okay, what do I do with my time now? You know, and that's when I put pen to paper and I started writing. Um, I put a few thoughts down on public speaking. I realized even on the virtual platform, it was so important. And this is why the book is called Foundations of Public Speaking, whether you're online or you're offline. Again, success is not the book, but it's the journey that I took in writing the book in a pandemic when actually the world, including myself, was mentally in a very negative space.
Mm.
So I'm really proud of myself. Actually, it's a very basic book, very quick guide. I think it's about 100 pages. You could read it in a couple of hours, and it's just the foundations of public speaking, the basics.
Yeah, no, mashallah, you should be very proud of your book, and I've got a copy of the book as well, which I haven't spent a couple of hours yet reading it, but certain headings, certain paragraphs, I've just thought, yes, I need to refresh myself on that. So how long did it take you to write that book? Was it just throughout the whole lockdown that you was able to
Yeah,
get it
throughout the
done?
whole lockdown. Yeah, throughout the whole, I mean, that came with its own challenges. How do you publish it?
Yeah.
Speaking to different publishing houses and publishers, and then how do you do it? I mean, gosh, that was a journey. But I'm really happy with the end result, and I'm really proud of myself.
No, so you should. So, what challenges I mean, okay, communication now, this is all in writing. What challenges or what should you be thinking about if there's aspiring authors out there or people who do, journal writing or any form of writing? I mean, we write every day, actually, let's be honest, whether it's a text
Yeah,
message, whether it's an email or
yeah.
anything like that. So that's another form of communication. What steps should we be taking? What considerations, what advice do you give around, other than just the obvious of, well, capitals means you're shouting and exclamation mark sort of thing, but other things, just to kind of put your point across?
I think write what you're passionate about because it's a lot easier. I wrote about a subject that I live and breathe every single day. And this is why it was so easy to write the book. But it was just bringing the book together so it made sense, the cover, the title. But if you write something that you're passionate about, it's not difficult to actually write, but it's actually bringing that together. That is the most difficult thing. How do you bring it together? How do you put it into a book? I haven't done this for, I mean, extra money is great. I haven't done it for an extra income stream. I've done it to leverage who I am, to leverage what I do.
Yeah.
Um, I've always read like a writer, so I learned to read in sips instead of gulps, so that not having hours to indulge won't keep me from reading all. Um, and yeah, I mean, the journey's been incredible, but I'd say write what you're passionate about, and it's much easier to bring a book together. And also set up a space where your brain instantly knows it's writing time. For me, it was a corner of of my bedroom, even though I do have an office at home. But my bedroom was it was my den, you know, and it was great. It was a corner of the room where I knew, where my brain instantly knew this is a writing time. But if being around others helps, then sit in a coffee shop where you can internalize your ideas, and do it. And seek your tribe. And what I mean by that is seek out other writers. They're your people. You can look for them online, conferences, networking events. Being around other writers will help you internalize the idea that actually I'm also a writer.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Maz, last couple of questions, and then we're probably going to come to the end of the show then. In regards to generic communication, what would you be saying to people, additionally to what you've already said around, look, find your voice, how best to communicate? Because there might be people listening who might find it difficult to possibly communicate in a certain situation, in the
Okay.
workplace. Some people might find communicating with their partners at home, it might be on a very, very personal level, in the work, not just in the workplace, but, communication. How many times do we probably hear about relationships coming to an end because people just didn't communicate, or they didn't communicate clearly, or they communicated in a certain manner, sort of thing? What would you say to people around, look, how can someone reflect on their manner of communication? How can they change it? What could they be doing?
I think the most important, because you spoke about relationships breaking down, but this tool applies to any form of communication, and the basic tool of communication is learning to listen. And what I mean by that is most of us only remember half of what we hear. And this is why relationships
Mm,
break down as well. The wife has said one thing, the husband has understood another, and the next thing you know, she's out the door.
yeah.
No matter how carefully we think we're listening, this is a critical skill to learn. Because again, it's not taught in school. We need to train ourselves to listen. And effective listening, it does not come naturally to many people, even myself. But when you consider that listening is one half of the communication dynamic, the importance of practicing this undervalued skill becomes apparent. That would be my top tip. Listening is an important communication skill that not everybody has, and a lot of conflict happens not just in meetings, like you've said, in relationships because of poor listening. To share that information with others, we need to hear what's being communicated, to learn how to listen well, paraphrase what was said to you, show you're listening, and to check you heard correctly.
Okay. Okay. Finally, Maz, it's something that I tend to ask all sisters that come on the show.
Okay.
Do you, as a Muslim woman, feel yourself that you are a role model, or not?
I think too often people misinterpret our religion and use it to hold women back. But actually, Islam teaches equality. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have many female models growing up, apart from my mother. But actually, today, Muslim girls have so many role models. With Muslim women, they're jumping into uncharted territories and making themselves seen and heard, from politics to sports to entertainment. It's becoming less uncommon to see a Muslim woman paving the way. And young Muslim girls need that. They need to see strong Muslim women exploring the unknown. So, to answer your question, yes, I see myself as a role model for my daughter. You know, we spoke about children earlier. Children, not just communication, but they learn good behaviors by copying good examples. And as a mother, I play a huge role, with my son and daughter. In the culture that I've grown up in, Omar, there's actually so much pressure to put other people's feelings and needs ahead of our own. That's how I was grown up. Think about your siblings, think about your parents, think about your grandparents, and we need to change the messaging for the next generation of women, starting with my own daughter, who will one day, inshallah, become a woman. She'll become a wife. She'll become a mother. And I've always taught her, put on your own oxygen mask. And what I mean is, this emergency flight mantra is the perfect metaphor to describe how you need to take care of yourself before being able to properly take care of others. I want my daughter to actually find her future path that will bring her joy. Whether we're the women out there listening, they're homemakers, whether they work full time, whether they run a business or something in between, we should share our success with our daughters. We should talk to them about what we love about our life, whether that includes a career or not, because that's not really important. And this will help our daughters recognize that girls have choices. And that might be the most important lesson yet. And my advice to my daughter is, if you're not invited to the table, pull up your own seat and start that conversation. And I hope that's the sort of role model I am for her.
MashaAllah, Maz, thank you very, very much for your insightful views, insight into public speaking and communication. Maz, really, really thank you for coming on the show. And I'm sure on behalf of our listeners, they're also grateful and thankful for you coming on and providing your, specialist knowledge and expertise. So thank you very much, and may Allah reward you. May Allah continue rewarding you and make things easy for you and your family as well. Guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Another episode of the Business Hour. Again, just to reiterate, if you wish to listen to this episode again and any other episodes previously, you can do so by visiting my YouTube channel at Umar Rashid HR. Please do reach out and connect with me on whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Again, the Twitter handle, the handles to all of those is at Umar Rashid HR. Maz, very, very quickly, if people wanted to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
They can do it through the website, which is www.makeapoint.co.uk. They can do it on LinkedIn, where I am under Maz Ifzal. And also they can find the book on Amazon, which is Foundations of Public Speaking.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Maz. Everyone, inshallah, keep safe and tune in again next Tuesday, 6 p.m. on Unity FM. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.